Hey everyone, PushingUpRoses here and welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be discussing a few games I played from 2025 that I think you need to check out, and since it's almost Christmas, what better time is there than gifting a few games to yourself? Or other people. You can do that too. Maybe you have a lot of gamer friends and you have no idea what to get them. You can now refer to this handy list written by a woman with some slightly unhinged but well-intentioned opinions. These are mostly narrative-driven games, but I've tried to vary them by genre. Mystery, horror, comedy. I got something for everyone. I'm like your Santa Claus of gaming. I'll be your ho ho ho. Anyway, without further ado, here are 5 random video games I think you should play because they are good and you should check them out after watching this video. Please watch this entire video. Thank you. The first game I want to talk about is called the Seance of Blake Manor, developed by Spooky Doorway, and if that company sounds familiar, it's because they created the Dark Side Detective series. Blake Manor is definitely a step away from the company's usual style. The Dark Side Detective games are very silly in nature with bumbling characters set against 2D, chunky pixel artwork. This title is a beautifully illustrated style set in a huge mansion. It's technically 3D, but definitely has the 2D cel-shaded look, and it is way more serious in nature. It has a strong focus on Irish folklore and all the characters have tragic backstories. I was obsessed with this game. I could not put it down. It was everything I loved about the old Laura Bow games, The Colonel's Bequest and The Dagger of Amon-Ra, but it worked a lot better. It's a brilliant take on the classic Christie-style whodunits, a closed circle story with a lot of suspicious characters, and a fantastic mechanic. You play a character hired to look into the disappearance of a young woman at the manor who went missing shortly before an extravagant seance was meant to take place. Your job is to figure out what happened to her, solve all of the other characters' personal mysteries, and essentially stop the seance because it becomes apparent to us that it will likely have heartbreaking aftermath if it takes place. The time mechanic is interesting. It passes as you look and interact with things. You can walk around all you want without spending time on it, but even things like talking to characters will make the time move forward. Things change every hour, events happen, characters move, new areas open up. It is extremely complex. Perhaps not a difficult game in terms of what you need to do, but for me it did take some time to get used to some of the user interface and mystery maps the game makes for you as you discover stuff. Seriously, look at all this. What am I looking at here? But once I did understand, I fully embraced this mechanic. It's a lot more guided than other mystery games like Obra Dinn or Blue Prince, and you can really take your time with it. You don't have to binge it in one 20-hour session like I did. It's not an easy game, but it's not impossible. The mysteries are grounded and not based on old adventure game logic of the past. It can feel overwhelming at times, especially since there are so many characters and mysteries to solve, but it's so fulfilling when you do get them. I was so proud of my first playthrough, even though this happened. I was so angry. There is a supernatural element to the story, and even though it's not a horror game, it is very spooky and had some genuinely startling moments. This game made me feel like a real detective, more than any other detective game, while delivering me this intense plot about an old haunted manor and the family who owns it. It's easily one of the best games I played in 2025, if not of all time. I don't even think I'm doing it justice with my description, so you'll just have to trust my judgment as somebody who loves the mystery genre. Check it out, you will not be disappointed. Unless you fuck up like me at the end, then you'll be disappointed and full of rage. Let's step away from the ultra tragic and step into something unabashedly silly. Duck Detective, the Ghost of Glamping. Also, I just accidentally typed fuck detective in this review, and I definitely want somebody to make that game. The Duck Detective is a series of games by a developer called Happy Broccoli, and look, I know. I get it. There are a lot of mystery games with talking anthropomorphic animals in them. Don't blame me, I didn't do it. And as you can see here, these games star a duck. You can make him quack. It's very cute. The first Duck Detective game came out in 2024, and much to my surprise, the team released another one in 2025. I loved the first title, and I love this one even more. It is just so freaking adorable. It's giving me cute aggression. I love the isometric top-down design, which is something I don't think I've ever said, because generally, I hate isometric games. The characters are drawn like these cute little cutout stickers, and the voice acting is top tier.
Fedderson, you'll have to take down that photo of me.
Oh, wow, which one?
The one where it looks like I have an enormous double chin.
Nonsense, you always look handsome in photos.
It's exaggerated, it's funny, it's silly, it's cozy, it's short.
It was short. I loved
I'm old and tired. I need short, fun games these days. I can't sit at my gaming desk for too long or I'll turn into a shrimp. The character is very hard-boiled, but definitely in a way that's parodying the old noir characters, and the mysteries are so fun to solve. Interestingly, the mechanic is very similar to Blake Manor. In both games, you need to uncover enough evidence to form hypotheses, which you do by stringing sentences together with key words. I think the Golden Idol games did this mechanic the best, but Duck Detective does a great job creating solvable mysteries in a world that is so fun to be in. I really hope there's more of these games. I want them the way I wanted my chapter books as a kid. I was always eagerly awaiting the new Clue book. I can't wait to see what the Duck Detective and his freaking cute as shit sidekick gets into next, but in the meantime, check out the Ghost of Glamping for a humorous take on the mystery genre. Now let's take a dangerous curve into the horror genre. This game popped into my feed unexpectedly, and after it did, it promptly took over my YouTube algorithm. I could not go a day without seeing numerous analysis videos on this thing. Since I couldn't get away from it, I decided to check it out. This is an experimental horror game called No, I'm Not a Human, developed by Trioscaz, and published by a company named Critical Reflex. I looked into the publisher, and they seem to have an oeuvre of these experimental horror games, so I will be keeping them on my radar since this seems to be part of their brand. No, I'm Not a Human is a psychological thriller in which there are these monstrous type beings called visitors killing people, there's a hostile government takeover, and the weirdest looking cat you've ever seen. You need to invite people into your home because it is too dangerous to be alone, and when you do, you need to figure out if they are a human or a visitor. You figure this out by observing what they look like, what their hygiene is like, sometimes how they talk. If you have a visitor in your house alongside other people, they will kill someone, and that is no good. You have to be careful with your choices because you only have energy to do a few tasks each day. There are a lot of characters in this game, like more than the first season of American Horror Story, and that's hard to beat. They all have backstories, though perhaps not as detailed as the mystery games I mentioned above. It has really interesting themes of discrimination and climate change, on top of just being very eerie. Even though you never leave this setting, which isn't very big, it's just a normal house with a few rooms in it, it doesn't get boring. I'd say it can get a little monotonous if you keep playing it with the intention of getting different endings, but my first playthrough was a blast. The art style is wild, with every character looking just a tad bit off or homely, like they all just stepped out of a Stephen King novel. There's a randomization element to this game where the visitors you find in one playthrough might not be the same as in another playthrough, which is why I think the replayability might get a little difficult because it does get so tedious. I feel like we're seeing a rise in these more experimental horror games. In fact, it feels like we're slowly moving away from the popularity of cozy games like Stardew Valley and drawn more to games that challenge the narrative gaming category. It reminds me of how people reacted when they first played Papers, Please. It felt really different than previous narrative games, and I think No, I'm Not a Human is very similar in that way. I did play a few other games published by Critical Reflex, Mouthwashing, and Karimara, and I absolutely love those titles as well. I look forward to more of these unsettling, low-res horror games, and I hope you give this one a chance because I know how easy it is to pass up a game based on their graphics. Just know that artistically, it makes so much sense for No, I'm Not a Human. It wouldn't be a Pushing Up Roses video unless I mentioned a more classic style point-and-click game, and this year there were many good ones to choose from, but I have to point out The Drifter by Powerhoof. This is one of the most high-octane, fast-moving adventure games I have ever played. Gameplay-wise, it's a point-and-click, but in every other way it feels like this cinematic experience, especially with the way it's paced and even more so from the way it is written and performed. Adventure games usually slog a little bit, so making one this high energy is impressive. You play as a character named Mick Carter who gets framed for murder, and while trying to navigate all that chaos, he is reliving some horrific moments of his life. What makes this adventure title stand out more than the others is its time loop mechanic, which normally infuriates me. I hate having to rewind a section and do it again, hoping for the correct result that will progress the story, but I didn't mind it here because the intriguing plot motivated me to get through those sections. And I say get through because, personally, again, I don't really like rewind mechanics, but you might love them, and if so, this is the game for you. I have to point out the voice acting because it brings this game to life. It's exceptional.
I fall back as the iron bar whistles past my face. Hey, watch it! Quiet! You'll get us killed again!
I don't know how to describe the experience of playing this besides saying it feels like I'm guiding a movie. Don't worry though, the energy does fluctuate appropriately. You won't always be running around like a chicken hopped up on Red Bull. The story will slow down and give you a chance to interrogate characters, do some fetch quests, and in general, play detective. Though not a comedic game, it does have these absurd moments that catch you off guard and you just can't help but laugh. And even though these characters are just pixelated blobs with limited facial features, they are still super animated and memorable. The music is great too, everything from calm, ambient tracks to absolutely unhinged noise. And I know everyone is probably sick of cults these days, but I can't help myself. I love a weird cult plotline, though I will say the vibe is more akin to a sci-fi thriller like The Thing, versus a cult you might find in something like The Wicker Man, which is more driven by folklore. Regardless, it passed the vibe check with flying colors, so if you want a point-and-click game with a modern take, this one's for you. Don't let it drift right past you. Before I talk about my final recommendation, I just want to give a quick shout out to Strange Jigsaws. It doesn't quite fit into the narrative-driven category, and it's not very long, so I don't have much to say about it, but it is a very unique puzzle game with a lovely sense of humor. The jigsaws are indeed very strange. I've never played a game like this before because it typically isn't my cup of tea, but there's something about Strange Jigsaws that kept my attention, even though I couldn't figure any of this shit out. Last but not least, I have to give some love to Rosewater, a point-and-click adventure game by Grundislav Games. This falls into a category I like to refer to as grand adventure. You are playing a character that goes on all kinds of quests. You travel to so many places, help a lot of other characters, make friends along the way. It really does feel like you're on an intense, dangerous journey. You play a character named Harley, a writer who moved to the small town of Rosewater for a job. Before you know it, you are convinced by an entertainer named Gentleman Jake to take a job with him, promising the payout will be handsome. Along the way, you find other characters to go on your journey with, and at one point, I felt like I was playing the Oregon Trail. In between traveling to different areas, you get cutscenes where you're in a covered wagon, and the game gives you a chance to talk to your peers. It actually has a relationship meter for each of your teammates, and your relationships impact what happens in the game. Structure-wise, it feels like you're going through short little vignettes. Sometimes they're related to the larger plot at hand, and sometimes they aren't. It wouldn't be an adventure game if you didn't weasel yourself into other people's lives, would it? There are some stories I enjoyed more than others, but that's pretty normal for a game that has different sections or chapters like this. I like the characters and came to care about them. I really like the puzzle design, and I like the challenge of trying to figure out the best ways to befriend my group. I actually played through this a second time so I could open up cutscenes I wasn't able to see in my first one. I will say that this is a slower paced game. There is a lot of exposition and storytelling, which is very indicative of Grundislav Games. You're there for the journey, not to just get to the ending as quick as possible. To be honest, I don't really enjoy media with a Western spin. I don't want to feel like I'm in a fistful of dollars. That's just really not my jam. But because this has more of an emphasis on character development and figuring out solutions to problems, to which there may be more than one, I didn't mind the Wild West universe. It's regarded as a modern classic, and I think that's an accurate description. It has the feel and look of a classic adventure, like a LucasArts or Sierra title, but plays like a modern game, meaning you can't get completely fucked over by your choices. There was a review written in Rock Paper Shotgun that stated, quote, "It's one of those games that if I had played it from the dusty disk drive of my parents' Dell Inspiron circa 2010, I would think about it once every couple of weeks. In a decade of updates to point-and-click formulas, Rosewater refuses to update basically anything, for better and for worse." I do want to challenge that statement because while it does stick to a more classic linear formula, I do think it updated things to make the gameplay way more streamlined and fair. This is most certainly not a repeat of those old Moon Logic games that make you want to pull your hair out. There is a very distinct upgrade in quality, writing, and voice acting. I also don't think you need to keep revolutionizing art to make something worthwhile. I do value new experimental games that push players to think differently, but I also deeply care about great storytelling, writing, and art, whether it's a familiar formula or not. Do you know why people keep getting flower tattoos after all these years? Because people still like them. They can be done poorly, but when they're done well, they shine. So if you need a fun way to spend your time, grab a whiskey, your cowboy hat, and Rosewater. That does it for my review of 5 games from 2025 that you should definitely play. I hope you enjoyed it and found something that piqued your interest. I don't normally do content like this, but if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, share, hype up the video, and maybe I'll do a video on my top 5 bathrooms in video games. If you want to support me, I have a Patreon linked below and other links of interest in the description. If you want to see more videos from me, here are a few suggestions. On the right, I have a video on the Drift, which is one of the games I talked about in this video, how meta, and on the left I have a video about the weirdest, most harrowing episode of The X-Files. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.